themselves. All right, let's talk about some more easements. Another one like a party wall easement. Condo associations where they separate the same wall, or the same wall separates people, they would have a party wall easement. One person owns this half of the wall, one person owns this half of the wall, but yet I have the right to use your half of the wall because it's the structure for my building. All right? Over here, these properties have changed. It used to be a Kmart and a Marsh. Now it's a Tractor Depot and a Chevy dealer over there on Smith Valley in 135. Where they share the same wall, the buildings touch. That's a party wall easement. We'll see it a lot in condo associations where they share a wall. Excuse me. All right, on your picture that we were drawing, I want you to modify it a little bit more. Put your power lines up here. That's called an easement in gross. Now, this confuses the heck out of me all the time because in gross means total, but an easement in gross is only an easement for one person. Only an easement for one person. Power line easements are the best example. Railroad tracks, sewer line easements. Generally, we just call them a utility easement. IPL can come drive down the power lines to maintain the power poles and the lines. You can't walk down it. It's not an easement. Like the appurtenant easement I told you was for the public. Anybody can go down it, the Pizza Hut, and an easement in gross is only the IPL or whatever utility it is. You can't just go walking down the back of someone's property and go, well, it's utility lines, there's an easement here. No, it's an easement in gross. It's not for the public's use, it's just for them. One person. It's trespassing for you. Now, those easements that we just talked about, the appurtenant easement, the party wall easement, the easement in gross, are easements that you will surrender or do voluntarily. It was Alan's choice to sell the land for Bob, so he created the easement, and he did it voluntarily. There are some easements that can be created by courts. All right? One of them would be an easement by necessity. An easement by necessity. This is the one that we keep banging on so far in this class. You cannot sell land that doesn't give access to that person to get to that land. We'll go back to Winnie the Pooh and the 100-acre wood. You cannot have 100 acres and sell 10 of it right there in the center and give no access to the owner of that property. Because possession's one of his rights. In this scenario, he can't gain possession without trespassing, which is illegal. So in the title company, when they would do this, and the farmer says, I'm selling this 10 acres here in the middle, the title company is going, okay, we have to create an easement to let this person get to it. It's called an easement by necessity. You have to have this to get to the property. So they would make or force an easement right there so that the person could get in his property. It's an easement by necessity. It will be created without the voluntary agreement of the guy selling. You could argue that the agreement would be that, okay, he doesn't sell, but I mean, if he sells it, it's got to have an easement. It's not a choice. That's a better way of saying it. The only choice would be not selling it. But if he wants to sell it, he has no choice. He has to give an easement to them somewhere. Now, here's my story. Here's the backstory. I'm sticking to it. The guy that buys the 10 acres in the middle of the woods, he gets up every morning, gets in his car, drives out the easement, drives around the 100-acre wood to get to the county road and drive out to the interstate. One morning he says, you know what, that's too much trouble. So what he does is he starts sneaking out the back and going that way across the guy's land. Under certain conditions, you can create an appurtenant easement. If you do it long enough, it is called a prescriptive easement or easement by prescription. If they do it long enough, eventually there will be an easement on your property. Those people that keep driving up to their back hills, all right? It's an easement by prescription or a prescriptive easement. Now, for that to happen, there are certain things that have to fall into place. All right? If you look on your overhead, the first one says it has to be open, meaning you do it not in a secretive way. You don't just sneak out the back in the dark where no one can. You do it all times a day. I do it in the afternoon when I come home. I do it in the morning when I leave. I do it in the night when I'm doing it. It's open. I'm not hiding by doing it. Has to be notorious. Notorious means everyone knows it's you doing it. They see the car going out the back way all times of the day, and it's my yellow Jeep with my license plate number. They know it's me. It has to be continuous and uninterrupted. Ding, 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 ding. Here's the kicker. Because like in Indiana, it's like 9 years. Some states, it could be 20 years. So I have to do it openly, notoriously, for 9 years. Continuous and uninterrupted. Means I can't do it for a couple months and then decide, okay, yeah, I'll go this way, and then start again. All right, I have to do it for a given amount of time, and we'll use 9 years as an example because that's Indiana's rule. However, they do have what's called successor rights. Or if you think of the word tack, what does a tack do? Like a thumbtack. He puts two pieces together and you can tack them together. There's a term called tacking where I can add my time on the back of Singh's time. So suppose Singh is doing it and he does it for 5 years and he sells that house to me, and in the closing, Singh says, you know what? I've been driving out the back because it's a heck of a lot closer. Just go ahead and do it. I've been doing it for 5 years. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. So I start doing it for 4 more years. I can tack my 4 years on the back of Singh's 5 years to get 9 years. There's successor rights. I'm his successor. I just continued doing what he did. But it also has to be uninterrupted. So he can't say, I've been doing it for 5 years, and I go, you know, I'm too afraid, I'm not going to do it. And then me sell it to you, and you go, oh, it's already got 5. No, it was interrupted, so you got to start over. All right? So it's continuous and uninterrupted for whatever given period of time it is. But it can be between multiple people. You could sell it to me and say, I've been doing it for 5. I live there 2 years, sell it to Dusty and say, hey, we've been doing it for 7. You do it 2 more years, there's 9. It's continuous. Doesn't have to be the same person. There's successor rights.
How can you prove?
Good question. It will be a court case, and that's why I said that's why these are forced, because even a prescriptive easement gets recorded. What would eventually happen is Dusty would go to court and go, hey, Your Honor, I want to do this. And he's going to say, okay, you got any proof? Yeah, I'm going to subpoena Raymond. He's going to come in and say he did it, and we'll subpoena Singh and say he did it. Or I've got a written notarized copy, or I've got pictures from 1974 with his car driving. However you want to prove it. And as long as the judge goes, hey, yeah, I buy this. Do you have any, Mr. Farmer, what do you got to say to this? Well, I've been sick for 9 years and haven't plowed the field because I've been living in a nursing home. I really can't defend myself on that. Done. All right? So it becomes, once that happens, it becomes a prescriptive easement, which works like an appurtenant easement. Now becomes public. Now the Pizza Hut and all these guys can drive across it. All right? Chavez, question? I thought you were getting ready to raise your hand. It's like an auction, dude. Don't move too quick. I'll call on you. We talked about terminating an easement. And there's several reasons we touched on when the need no longer exists. When the owner or the dominant and the servant become the sole owner, like I said, Alan buys the property back. The release of the right of the owner of the servant says, hey, I don't need it anymore. An abandonment of the easement. An abandonment might be, like you said, they're trying to go back to this camping, and then they just decide not to ever go back again. You can petition for it to be removed. Now, there's another version of an easement, which I touched on, I said just a minute ago. It is called a license. A license. Think of a license as a gentleman's agreement. It's a verbal agreement between neighboring parties that agree that each other can use their property for access or for whatever. If you live in a house where you have really close neighbors next door and you're like, hey, dude, I just got a fifth wheel. I need to pull around to the back. Can I drive across the back? Oh, yeah, go ahead. You can use that. That would be a license. All right? License runs with the owner. All right? Remember I told you a pertinent easement runs with the land? When the seller sells off, the easement stays there. A license runs with the owner. And this goes back to what we were just talking about. Maybe they had a license between the previous person and them, and then when you bought it, that license is now gone. They can't come drive on your property because the last owner said they could. You're going to go, stop, wait a minute. I'm not giving you that license. I don't want you to drive on that property. So the license terminates at the death of either party, the change of sale, or it can actually change at will. You literally can go to your neighbor and go, I don't like you anymore because the Colts beat your football team, so I'm removing the right for you to drive on my property. A license is a very watered-down version of an easement. It's not recorded. It's just an oral agreement between parties, and when those parties separate, think of it that way, either by emotionally or physically because one moves or dies, that license goes away. When they're no longer gentle ladies or men, yeah. All right? An encroachment is a physical entity on my property or on your property or on the neighbor across the way's property. Most common one that we see, what? Fence line. I wasn't going with that one. Tree limbs. Tree limbs. My neighbor's tree has grown up and a limb has come over. I own the airspace, remember, and it's now blocking my sun deck that I want to go lay out on the sun. No. My tree, my limb, sorry. Now, don't kill the tree, because if I killed the tree that's on his property, now I'm in trouble. Fence line's another one. They go to put a fence up and they miss, and they put it on your property. We got one in my ex-wife's house, addition, and sometimes you want to just take people and smack them and go, what the heck are you thinking? So this guy builds a fence, and it's right on Sherman Drive. I mean, you can see it. Guy builds a fence line, and he decides that he doesn't want to encroach, so he puts it just inside his fence line, right? Here's the fence. This neighbor, who we'll call Einstein number 2, does the same thing, but doesn't want to encroach on that guy's land, so he puts it just inside his fence line. There is 2 fences on Sherman Drive in Sherman Addition, Commons you go by. The 2 fences are about 18 inches apart. And the grass is now like 4 foot tall between them because you can't get a lawnmower down the middle of them. Yeah. Hello, McFly. Didn't one of you go, hey, you want a fence? I want a fence. Let's go have a survey done, and we'll split the cost of a fence and put it right on the line. Then we won't have this. No. Let's argue with each other to get 2 fences that are 18 inches apart that even my 12-year-old son can't walk between, and now the grass is too tall. You have to walk with a weed eater. Trees happen a lot like that. You get trees where the limb comes over and they cut the tree off. A shed, somebody will build a shed out in the back corner of their lot and they missed it, so the back end is that. That's your property. Sorry. Who was it? Ralph Waldo Emerson? Good fences make good neighbors. You know, you don't want their tree on my lot. You don't want that. So an encroachment is a physical entity on my property. A fence, a shed, tree limb, something like that. That's an encroachment. Then the last one I want to talk about, they're just going to touch on it here because it hampers your ability of disposition, is called a lis pendens. Latin, lis pendens means litigation pending. A lot of attorneys will file this prior to going to court so that whoever they're trying to get at won't sell any of their assets. All right? So if I was going to sue Jesse back there, let's say, and I know he's got a boat and a car and an airplane and 2 motorcycles and 3 houses, but I'm afraid that once he finds out I'm going to sue him, that he's going to start moving stuff into other people's names and selling it and all that, then I won't have to collect anything. My attorney will go down to the recorder's office and file what's called a lis pendens. Think of it like a surprise attack. Ha! We're going to jump on all of his deeds and motorcycle titles and airplane registrations and all of that, and it creates what's called a cloud on the title. A cloud on the title. Now, if he tries to sell something, the title company's going to go, hey, wait a minute. This Raymond Modulin dude has filed a lis pendens against you. That's a lawsuit. You can't transfer ownership of your house until this lawsuit's settled. Sorry. So I've, in effect, blocked him from getting rid of assets because I think they're going to end up being mine after the end of this lawsuit. It's not a lawsuit. It's a future lawsuit. It's an intent to sue him. But while I'm trying to decide if I want to sue him, I certainly don't want him selling everything and getting rid of it. So we file a lis pendens on his properties. Now everything's got it. He can't sell his cars, his airplanes, his boat, because they're all going to go, hey, wait a minute, you've got a cloud. A cloud is something that is questionable or funny or, hey, that's not right. So that's called a cloud, and we'll get to it more in depth. That's what this lis pendens hampers his right of disposition because the title company will not allow him to sell that property with a cloud on it. Has the clouds go away. All right, so that's lis pendens. Once the matter has been resolved, so now we go to court and the judge says, Raymond, you're entirely wrong. Jesse was right. Okay, now they remove all the clouds. Now he can go sell his airplane. Or they'll say, yeah, Raymond was right. Jesse's got to pony up money. Now those clouds become an attachment, and I attach his house, and now I'm a lien holder. And we'll go through all of how that happens. Any questions about interests in real estate? No? Hasta la vista, baby.